For agriculture to be sustainable, land and water must be used efficiently to reduce negative impact on the environment and ensure resilience to climate change. We can't achieve global food security without preserving the services that ecosystems such as trees and forests provide, and we can't sustain forests without thinking of how we will feed a growing global population. Public and private investment must be increased to manage the resource base, improve technical production efficiency and create an enabling environment for the implementation of policies and practices that foster sustainable increases in agricultural production. If this process is correctly designed and implemented, the economic prosperity generated through hunger reduction can create the demand and means for the sustainable use of natural resources, which in turn can contribute to increased prosperity.
Education, knowledge and agricultural advice are essential for sustainable farming, especially by smallholders in developing countries. Access to resources is equally important. Besides water and land, these resources mainly comprise fertilizer, seeds, pesticides, machinery and draft animals, but also credit and, often, workers. Small-scale farmers are still often excluded from the formal credit market in many places because they cannot offer banks any collateral. In particular, growth-oriented sustainable farming needs development infrastructure and access to functioning markets. Modern communication technologies play an increasingly vital role.
Efficient water utilization. There is already a water shortage, but demand is spiraling. The United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, estimates that if current practices are maintained, population growth will boost the demand for water from farming alone by another 50% by the middle of this century. Urban water demand will also climb, as will that of industry, making the situation even more critical. Farmers will have to use water more sustainably in the future. One option is to embrace cultivation methods that make better use of rainwater, the sole source of water for 72% of land used for farming. Other solutions include small retention basins, dams, water spreading weirs, contour lines and conservation soil management. These techniques can even increase groundwater levels where they have fallen in many arid areas, in particular because of excessive water extraction. Another option is to use water sparingly, for example through drip irrigation, a method whereby plants receive only as much water as they need. But this practice can also have negative environmental consequences and lower the groundwater level, for example, because only a fraction of the previous amount of water penetrates the ground. In addition, salinization can occur because there is no longer enough water to wash away salt. Fair distribution of water resources and management of water catchment areas is equally important.
Post-harvest management. Up to 1/3 of the annual cereal harvest is lost in developing and emerging countries, and as much as 40% of perishable products like roots and tubers, fruit and vegetables. Some is literally lost during harvesting and transportation, some is eaten by mice, beetles or moths, and some rots or goes moldy. Mold is especially hazardous because it can form invisible toxins. Post-harvest losses cause serious economic losses because they occur after a great deal of money and work has already been invested in production. Quality losses have an impact on prices or even make produce unsellable. On a purely mathematical basis, in fact, the amount of food written off to post-harvest losses would be enough to solve the hunger problem. Post-harvest protection is therefore one quick way to improve food security in the long term without the need for additional resources. The techniques already exist, they just have to be applied. Feeding the world's population would be possible, at least theoretically, if all the food simply thrown away worldwide could be put to use.
Concluding remarks. Improvements in fertilizer management, cultivation practices and soil management can help to mitigate greenhouse emissions from farming. However, gains in productivity and efficiency can also play a part, for instance by alleviating the pressure on existing forests and thus helping to preserve them. Lower harmful carbon dioxide emissions and less pollution, more efficient use of energy and other resources, no additional biodiversity loss, and preservation of ecosystems and their contribution to the environment. A green economy means switching to sustainable practices, growth and social justice. Policymakers and businesses must work hand in hand to conserve the environment and fight poverty. Sustainable farming has the potential to increase yields and feed a growing world population for the next 100 years without destroying our living conditions. Implementing sustainable farming in both developed and developing countries requires growing awareness of sustainability among policymakers, businesses and consumers, as well as sharing the necessary knowledge with producers. And the framework has to be right. Policymakers must commit to sustainable agricultural developments. We need to strengthen associations and civil society, and we need markets and access to them. All of this is possible provided the will is there to achieve it.